Bette Midler almost didn't sing the song that made Johnny Carson cry. When her musical director Mark Shaman suggested One for My Baby, Bette refused. "I can't sing that song," she said. "I'll be too nervous to hit those high notes." Shaman pushed back. It was the perfect song, a torch song about endings, about saying goodbye to something you love, about that last drink before you walk out the door forever. After days of convincing, Bette agreed. She found the right key, rehearsed until she could sing it in her sleep, walked onto the Tonight Show stage on May 21, 1992, ready to give Johnny Carson the farewell he deserved. What Bette didn't prepare for was her own heart. As she sang, she looked at Johnny, the man who'd launched her career, the man who'd believed in her when nobody else did, the man who was leaving television forever. Her voice cracked with emotion, and then she saw something that broke her completely. Johnny Carson was crying, not performing tears, real tears, streaming down his face as she sang about rainy days and last rounds and walking away. Bette finished the song, ran to Johnny, threw a lei around his neck, and then Bette Midler, the divine Miss M, burst into tears so hard she had to run off stage. 18 million Americans watched two legends say goodbye, and nobody had a dry eye. Johnny Carson's relationship with Bette Midler began 20 years before that final night. In 1972, Bette was a young singer performing at the Continental Baths in New York City, a gay bathhouse. Not exactly the launching pad for mainstream stardom, but Bette didn't care about mainstream. She cared about performing, about connecting with audiences, about being the boldest, loudest, most outrageous version of herself. Word spread about this brash singer from Hawaii who could belt out songs while making audiences laugh and cry in the same set. Johnny Carson heard about her. In an era when most television hosts played it safe, Johnny took a chance. He invited this unknown bathhouse singer onto The Tonight Show. It was a risk. Network executives were nervous, sponsors were wary, but Johnny trusted his instincts. Bette Midler walked onto that stage and changed everything. Bette Midler walked onto that stage and changed everything. She was funny, talented, uninhibited, and absolutely magnetic. America fell in love with her that night, and Bette never forgot who gave her that chance. Over the next 20 years, Bette became one of Johnny's favorite guests. She appeared on The Tonight Show dozens of times. Each appearance was an event. Bette would sing, tell outrageous stories, flirt with Johnny, and leave audiences wanting more. Their chemistry was undeniable. Johnny, usually so controlled and professional, would loosen up around Bette, laugh harder, take more risks, let his guard down in ways he rarely did with other guests. It wasn't romantic, it was something deeper, mutual respect, genuine affection, the bond between two professionals who recognized greatness in each other. When Johnny announced his retirement in 1991, the question immediately arose, who would be his final guests? The answer, for anyone who knew Johnny, was obvious. Robin Williams for the laughter, Bette Midler for the heart. The logistics of Johnny's farewell were complicated. His actual final show, May 22, 1992, would have no guests, just Johnny, alone, looking back on 30 years, a retrospective with clips and memories. But the night before, May 21st, would be the emotional goodbye, the last night with guests, the last performances, the last chance for America to see Johnny the way they'd always known him, surrounded by the people who made The Tonight Show special. The producers approached Bette months in advance. Would she be willing to close out Johnny's final guest show? Bette's business manager pushed back initially. The pressure was enormous, the expectations impossibly high. But writer Bruce Vilanch intervened. "Are you nuts?" he said. "It's history-making." Bette agreed. She would be there. She would sing Johnny into retirement. Now she just had to figure out what to sing. The first song was easy. Miss Otis Regrets, a Cole Porter classic. Elegant, witty, the kind of sophisticated entertainment Johnny loved. But the second song, the closing number, the song that would be the last thing America heard before Johnny's final bow with guests, that required something special. Bette's musical director Mark Shaman had the answer. He was in the shower when it hit him. One for My Baby, a torch song written by Harold Arlen and Johnny Mercer. A song about sitting at a bar at closing time, talking to the bartender about a love that's ending. A song about that moment when you know it's over, but you're not ready to leave. It was perfect. Too perfect. Bette wasn't sure she could handle it. "I can't sing that song," she told Shaman. "Those high notes. I'll be too nervous. I'll crack." Shaman wouldn't let it go. They found the right key. Rehearsed for days. Bette finally agreed, still uncertain she could pull it off without falling apart. May 21, 1992. The atmosphere at NBC Burbank was electric. Everyone knew this was the end of an era. 30 years, 11,000 episodes, 30,000 guests. The longest-running late-night show in television history was ending, and everyone wanted to be there for the final night with guests. The studio audience arrived hours early. Staff members who hadn't cried in years were already emotional. And Johnny Carson, the man at the center of it all, walked past his crew on the way to the stage and said only 2 words, "One more." The show began with something unprecedented. When Johnny walked through the curtain, the audience gave him a standing ovation. Not the usual applause, a sustained, thunderous 2-minute ovation. Johnny tried to quiet them. "This is getting embarrassing," he said. But the audience wouldn't stop. They needed him to know what he meant to them. Finally, the applause faded. Johnny did his monologue. His last monologue ever. Written by Jim Mulholland, Stephen Kunis, and Rift Fournier. Sharp, funny, everything a Tonight Show monologue should be. And then it was time for the guests. Robin Williams came out first. He was pushing a massive rocking chair with guitars for legs. Johnny climbed into it, rocking back and forth, doing an old man voice. "Can I sit in the sun today?" Robin was manic, brilliant, exactly what the show needed. Pure laughter, pure joy, a reminder of why The Tonight Show had been appointment television for 3 decades. Robin and Johnny had a special bond too. Years earlier, when Johnny was struggling with a particularly difficult show, Robin had come out unscheduled and saved the night with his improvisational genius. Johnny never forgot that. "He saved my ass," Johnny said later. Now Robin was saving him one more time, giving America permission to laugh before the tears came. After Robin finished, there was a break. The audience caught their breath, and then Bette Midler took the stage. Bette started with Miss Otis Regrets. Beautiful, controlled, professional. The kind of performance that reminded everyone why she was a legend. When she finished, she sat down with Johnny for an interview. They talked about old times, about their 20-year friendship, about what Johnny meant to her career and her life. Johnny mentioned that Here's That Rainy Day was one of his favorite songs. Without missing a beat, Bette started singing it. Right there, no accompaniment, just her voice. Johnny joined in, an impromptu duet between 2 old friends. The lyrics hit differently that night. "Where is that worn-out wish that I threw away, after it brought my love so near?" Johnny's voice cracked slightly. This wasn't a performance anymore. This was 2 people saying goodbye. After the duet, Bette returned to center stage for her final song, the one she'd almost refused to sing. "One for My Baby." The lights dimmed. A single spotlight found Bette. The band began playing, slow and melancholic, and Bette started singing. "It's 2:45. There's no one in the place except you and me." The song is about a man talking to a bartender about a love affair that's ending. But that night, it wasn't about romance. It was about 30 years, about a career, about a man who'd tucked America into bed every night and was now saying goodnight forever. Bette sang with everything she had. Her voice, always powerful, carried new weight. You could hear the emotion building with every verse. Somewhere in the second verse, a cameraman noticed something. Johnny Carson wasn't watching like a host. He was watching like a man whose world was ending. Tears were forming in his eyes. Not the performative tears of television. Real tears. The kind that come from somewhere deep. The cameraman made a split-second decision. He switched to an angle that had never been used in 30 years of The Tonight Show. A wide shot from across the studio that captured both Bette on stage and Johnny at his desk. And America saw something they'd never seen before. Johnny Carson crying. The king of late night. The man who never let them see him vulnerable, sitting at his desk with tears streaming down his face. He didn't wipe them away, didn't look at the camera, just let himself feel it. Let America see him feel it. For the first and only time. Bette finished the song. The final notes hung in the air. And then she did something unplanned. Someone handed her a large red lei, a reference to her Hawaiian birthplace. Bette grabbed it, ran across the stage to Johnny, threw the lei around his neck and hugged him. And then Bette Midler, the divine Miss M, the woman who'd built a career on boldness and bravado, burst into tears. Real, uncontrollable tears. She was so overcome that she couldn't stay on stage. She ran off, barely able to stand, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. The audience was crying. The crew was crying. Johnny was crying. 18 million people watching at home were crying. It was the most emotionally raw moment in late-night television history. After the taping ended, something unprecedented happened. Johnny invited Robin and Bette to his basement office at NBC. This was unheard of. Johnny was famously private. He didn't socialize after shows, didn't let people into his personal space. But that night was different. That night Johnny needed to be with the people who'd helped him say goodbye. They talked for hours, about the show, about their lives, about what came next. For Johnny, what came next was silence. He would rarely appear in public again, would live out his remaining years in Malibu, watching the ocean, playing tennis, sending occasional jokes to David Letterman. The man who'd talked to America every night for 30 years would barely talk to anyone at all. The episode from May 21, 1992, won an Emmy for Best Individual Performance in a Variety or Music Program. Bette Midler's performance was recognized as one of the greatest moments in television history. Years later, Bette would call it one of the most emotional experiences of her life. "I almost didn't do it," she said. "Marcus had to convince me. And then when I was singing and I looked at Johnny and he was crying, I couldn't hold it together. None of us could." The image of Johnny Carson crying became iconic. It humanized a man who'd spent 30 years being perfect, showed America that beneath the polish and the professionalism was a person who felt things deeply, who loved his job, who wasn't ready to leave, who was leaving anyway because he knew it was time. Johnny Carson died on January 23, 2005. He was 79 years old. In the years between his retirement and his death, he gave almost no interviews, made almost no public appearances. Let the legacy of those 30 years speak for itself. But when people remember Johnny Carson, they often remember that final night with guests, not for the jokes, not for the clips, for the tears, for the moment when the king of late night let America see his heart. David Letterman, who considered Johnny his mentor, paid tribute on his show after Johnny died. He told the audience that in Johnny's final months, Carson had been sending him jokes. Letterman would use them in his monologue, and Johnny would watch at home, getting a big kick out of it. Letterman ended his tribute by having Doc Severinsen play "Here's That Rainy Day," the same song Johnny and Bette had sung together that final night. The story of Johnny Carson and Bette Midler is a story about endings, about how even the best things have to end, about how the people who help us along the way become part of our story forever. Bette Midler gave Johnny Carson his farewell, a song she almost didn't sing, a moment she almost couldn't handle. But she did it, because he'd done it for her 20 years earlier. He'd taken a chance on a young singer nobody believed in, and she repaid that chance with the most beautiful goodbye television has ever seen. If you've ever had to say goodbye to something you love, you understand what happened that night, the fear, the sadness, the overwhelming gratitude for everything that was. Johnny Carson hosted The Tonight Show for 30 years. He interviewed 30,000 guests. He told hundreds of thousands of jokes, but the moment people remember most is the moment he stopped performing. The moment he let them see him cry. Because that's when they knew it was real. That's when they knew it was over. And that's when they knew they'd never forget. Subscribe for more stories about the moments that made television history. Share with someone who remembers watching Johnny. And comment below, what was your favorite Johnny Carson memory? Because for 30 years, Johnny Carson tucked America into bed. And on May 21, 1992, Bette Midler tucked Johnny in. With a song, with a lay, with tears that couldn't be faked, the farewell that made America cry, the ending that was perfect because it wasn't perfect. It was real.